building confidence in the practice of access technology, training and assessment. I'm Elise Lonsdale, and this is
Data Australasia, guided by lived experience, led by you.
Thanks, Kylie, for that wonderful introduction. I'm Elise Lonsdale, of course, and I'm back with yet another video. And I've spoken about this before on these videos about having to teach by curriculum with access technology. And there's two words I don't like in this sector that we've seen over the last decade, particularly since the NDIS has been around, and they are client-centred. You will never see that written in any documentation from Data Australasia, nor will you ever hear me speak it, or very rarely, because client-centred has been the ruination of why we have no respectability in the access technology field. And let me bring you back 10 years when the NDIS came in, or just a little bit before, when they were saying that we saw the organisations close down. They actually closed down their RTOs, or their registered training organisations. Now, I think Vision Australia had one. Visibility over in Perth, where I was working at the time, definitely had one. And I'm not sure whether any of the other blindness organisations around Australia have ever had them. But I tell you what, whether it's a training organisation, a registered training organisation, or something similar, what we need is an accredited blindness access technology course. And I have spoken about that on here many times, even in some of my earlier videos. So what does this really mean for the consumer? Okay, once upon a time, people would learn JAWS and Windows together. So they'd go along to somewhere like Vision Australia, and at that time it was Vision 201 in High Street, Prahran, and they would do a course, and it might be for 10 weeks. It might be a couple of mornings a week. In my opinion, it could have probably been a lot more fast-tracked, but, people would go for maybe a school term, 13 weeks or 6 to 8, 10 weeks or whatever the school terms go for these days. And they'd go along for a couple of mornings a week, and they'd learn the basics of Windows, the taskbar, the start menu, shortcuts, and at the same time, over the top of that, they'd be learning some JAWS commands. And there was a workbook that they would work from that was created by a person who set up the course, or by a proper trainer. And so you had this curriculum, and you had to sort of follow the curriculum. You had to learn step A before you learned step B, and then on to step C. And similarly, when people went to learn Microsoft Word with JAWS, or Microsoft Excel with JAWS, or even PowerPoint back in the day with JAWS. I remember doing a PowerPoint course, and I went along to do Excel and JAWS. And it was a 5-day fast-track course. Well, I got through it in 2.5. So I said to the instructor, what am I supposed to do? And she goes, you can do whatever you like. And I said, can I pick up PowerPoint? She said, yep, you can pick up PowerPoint. So I think I got a certificate for both. So I did both PowerPoint and Excel in the same week when the course was programmed to only do Excel. And you often wonder whether the bar was probably a little bit low in that instance. But anyway, that's the way they structured their courses. And this went all the way through to the late 2000s, actually. I remember taking my auntie to do a similar course in 2007, 2008. 2008, I think it was. Yes, it was, when she got into JAWS and Windows. What's happened to all of that? Well, the word client-centred come along, didn't it? And this is where the client comes along and goes, I want to learn how to do email. Or I want to learn how to do Facebook. I want to learn how to use my iPhone.
Speech off.
I want to learn how to use my iPhone. Thank you, iPhone. You had to sort of speak in there. Yep, that's fine. But I had a client only this week who wanted to do things like notes and learn how to use the Passwords app and learn how to use the Journal app. Now, the Passwords and the Journal app I don't generally use these days because I've got third-party apps. I've got 1Password and Day One Journal, which are a little bit more sophisticated than the built-in apps, but they all work on a very similar type principle. But she can barely see the bloody device. She hasn't learned how to use VoiceOver, and she still has difficulty working out what's a heading and what's a link or what's a button. So you've got these people trying to run before they can walk, or even walk before they can even crawl. And this is because of this client-centred model. Mrs. Mac comes to Data Australasia or Vision Australia or Visibility or Next Sense and goes, I want to learn how to do Facebook. Well, if you can't click on a link or if you can't operate an app in the first place, how the heck are you going to do Facebook? So we have to go back to a curriculum basis. The other advantage of having a curriculum is that I went last week to do a JAWS course at the Statewide Vision Resource Centre. I was the facilitator. And there were people at all sorts of levels, mostly beginner level, but there were some that had played with NVDA and some that had done this and some that had done, even some people in the class who had the volume turned down. I said, hang on, you're doing a screen reader course with voice and you've got the volume turned down? I don't want to disturb other people. Have you thought about using headphones? But I said, going to a JAWS course with text-to-speech is a little bit, and having the volume turned down, wouldn't it be a bit like going to a driving lesson and forgetting to take the steering wheel of your car? I didn't think it would be. They laughed, of course. So yeah, if you're going to do a screen reader course, you've got to be able to hear the output from your screen reader. The whole thing is that I got talking to these teachers. They were actually itinerant visiting teachers. And I was confused as to what level they were at. Now, if they'd done a course on curriculum, even if they'd just done a basic course, I did a basic course, I'd say, okay, they're at basic level. Or if they'd done an intermediate course, I could say they're at an intermediate level. Or if they've done advanced things like messing with JAWS scripting and, deep into the settings, I could say they're in an advanced level. So I had no idea where they were at. So if they had a curriculum to have followed in previous training they may have done, or readings they may have even done, they could say, I've done it to the I've done it to the intermediate level, or I've done it to the basic level. So it would help me be guided. So that's the other advantage of having a curriculum. The other thing is, I'll give you a little anecdote about what actually went to me when I was at Visibility in West Australia. We had a new manager. And I was in charge of the volunteers. I worked with the volunteers, and I wanted to put on this young girl. And the manager was new at the time. It was after my friend Greg had left. I won't say who the manager is because he actually went on to do quite well in the blindness sector before he left, and I got a lot of time for this gentleman. But he was new at the time, and he was a bit dubious about me putting on a totally blind volunteer to make talking books. And I said, why not? I said, she's done a Certificate 3 in Business Studies, a Certificate 3, an AQ, well, it's now AQS, ASCO, but back then we just used to call it the AQTF, the Australian Quality and Training Framework. She's got a Certificate 3 in Business Studies. Therefore, she has to know some things. She has to know the difference between a dialogue box, a check box, a radio button. She has to know what a list view is. She has to know what a document edit field is so that she's writing in a document. She would most likely have to know what a cell is in Excel so she can do a spreadsheet. She has to know how to save a document or retrieve a document, or perhaps even have access to a database, in an organisation. And she would definitely have to know her way around Windows. Oh, and by the way, because this girl's blind, this girl would have to also know how to use the screen reader, be it NVDA or JAWS. And at that time, I know they were doing a lot of JAWS training. So she would only not have to know the basic software, mainly the Windows and the application software. She would also have to know above that the screen reading software of their choice, which means she will know what a highlight bar is, which means she will know what a list view is, etc. All I have to do is train her in using my specific software that we're using to create the audiobooks from. And I will use those terminologies that, what's a highlight bar, and listen for where the highlight bar is as you cursor down through the list. Use your left and right arrow keys if you open a tree view, etc., etc. Guess what? I did that. I insisted this girl get the job. She got the job. And about half an hour or an hour into her working, I took my manager out to the common area where the volunteers worked, and I said, you stand here and you watch this girl with me. See, she's already productive because I took the original knowledge that she knew and built onto it with our specific software. And she went on to produce a lot of audiobooks. So I have a challenge to the orgs in this, and that is the orgs need to bring back, and the orgs being Vision Australia and Guide Dogs and Next Sense and everybody else out there, we refer to them now as the orgs. It's a generic term. I have a challenge to you all. It is time to bring back the ability to train by curriculum for the reasons listed in this video. The challenge is, I'll help you do it. I'll even come work for you. I'll help you write the course. I'm a qualified trainer. I'm an access technology trainer, and I now hold that certificate in training assessment. I could write the courses for you, all of them, and I'd be happy to do so on a contractual basis. So the first one to sign up, I'm in, and I don't care if it's interstate. I'll come work for you. So that's the challenge. Any organisation, first in, best dressed, I'll help you out. I'm Elise Lonsdale from Data Australasia, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
For fast, efficient access technology training and support, call Elise Lonsdale from Australia 0448 966 533. That's 0448 966 533. Or from New Zealand on 027 315 2858. That's 027 315 2858. Data Australasia. Guided by lived experience, led by you.